Welcome to Slingshot 25 Shotcast, a series of bite-sized podcasts that'll feel like an espresso shot to your brain. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Jackie.
I almost said I'm Jackie.
Weird, because you're not.
So today we're going back to basics. This is a very exciting time for us at Slingshot 25. We have added change. We've always had change services, let's face it. But we've added a communication arm to our portfolio of services. And it is super exciting because you can't do change without communication. And so much of what teams struggle with is making business decisions, which you've heard us talk about, and communicating them. So what we're going to do on the Shotcast is give you a real quick, here's the basics, folks, for communicating business decisions. And there's four steps to communicating business decisions. Start with the why. Tell people where you're going. Outline the plan to get there. And tell people what's expected of them.
What could be easier?
What could be? So I'm going to let you dig in, Jackie, because I know you love purpose. And I know you love Simon Sinek's work around the whys. Mm-hmm. What would you tell people about communicating the why of a change?
Well, the first thing, I also want to back up just even a little bit there, where you said we aren't very good at communicating business decisions. And that's been my experience. That's what I see. That's our first stumbling out of the gate, is that we make a decision sometimes and don't even realize that we've made a decision. It feels, amongst the people who are making decisions, it feels like, all in a day's work, done deal. And there's, in that moment, there's very little sort of cognizance of the real work now begins. Yeah. And it feels like the real work is behind you.
Well, and they also think that people know that they've made a decision when you haven't told anyone. Of course they know. We sent an email, whatever.
Yeah.
Very good.
So they have to do some backing up themselves. The decision makers themselves have to back up and think about the why, because there is a whole bunch of psychology around people want to know what they're connected to, what's the purpose of what they're doing, and they don't, need to know that on the level that we sometimes fear they need to know. They don't necessarily need all of the entire backstory of what brought us to this moment of having to make this decision. I think it's much lighter than that in some ways. It's just a simple acknowledgement and connection back to the basics of why you're in business.
Yeah, and it's really important because one of the other things we've learned is that when we communicate the decision and we get super excited about the what, and that's fine, but we're going to get to the what. But when you skip the why, you actually create distrust in your organization. Did you know that? If I don't have the context, if you didn't take the time to tell me the pieces, I start filling in the blanks with things. Again, our brains are wired for negative. We fill in the space with assumptions that aren't healthy. So sharing the context, starting with the why, making that part of your communicating your decisions process is really important. The second step is to say where you're going. You have to give people a picture of where you're headed. What's it going to be like? You've told them why. And you have to start to outline what it's going to look like when you get there, so people can have something to hold on to. And this is insanely important in worlds where we're doing projects that are going to take 6 months, 12 months, a year. It's a long time before I don't know if you've built a house or watched a building go up. There's a plan. What a perfect picture. We don't have blueprints in our business world. We say, here's the photograph of what the house is going to look like when you're done. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to create the virtual version of that, essentially, the conversational, that's not a great way to say it, version of what's this thing going to look like, so that people can buy in, so they can connect, so they can make decisions on a daily basis that align with where we're headed. It's really important.
Yeah, it is really important, and it can actually be hard to do, and you may have to take a few runs at it, and that's okay. I think one of the other things that generally happens with communication around change, which is, of course, what we're talking about here, is that people feel like they're just executing a one-shot plan, just checking their way through this. Did that, sent that note. You may have to have multiple check-ins on this, multiple ways of describing it. And then, listen to what, are people interpreting it the way you expect that they'll be interpreting that?
And your picture might change from the conversation you had with people, right? It's going to move.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it might take multiple runs at that, where we're going. Yeah.
The third step, outlining the plan to get there, I think in our organizations, especially organizations that are large enough to have project managers and those kind of roles, this is the easier thing to do. I don't want to skip over it completely, but if anything, we skip step one of the why, we skip painting the picture, and we just jump to what's the cost, what's the budget, what's the schedule.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here. What when are things going to happen? Who's going to do them? I think that's our muscle that we're most comfortable with.
Tends to be. Yeah, I think it does tend to be in organizations, because organizations usually, the reason that they exist is to put work out into the world, whether that's building product or delivering services. And in order to do the work of the business, you tend to have people who know how to make plans for getting that work done. And I think it is smart to think of any change that's coming through your organization as something you're delivering to yourself. And you should have the same kind of rigor and discipline about creating those plans.
Love it. The last one is I don't know if you listen to the first three or not, but listen to this one. Step 4, tell people what's expected of them. This is the hardest part of communicating business decisions, because the truth is you don't know right away how your change and your business decision is going to affect every individual on your team. So you're going to do communications that are saying, this is what we've decided, this is why, this is where we're going, this is the plan. And you're going to do a lot of those. You may do a town hall, you may do a team meeting, you may do emails, you may have posters around. And the sad reality of change communication is, until you can tell people what the change means to them, they don't hear very much of what you're saying. And they are going to fill out every voice of the employee survey that you do with a feedback and an answer of a question that says, we need more communication around here.
Yeah. So that brings up for me this idea that the people who are at the top of an organization, who tend to make those decisions that create a lot of change for a lot of people, I almost want to say, in some ways you have to get a bit of thick skin. Because you do have to go out of the gate with, just the why we made this decision, what the future should look like, and, starting to form plans of how we'll get there. But the only question on people's minds in that moment is, what does this mean to me specifically, sitting in this seat doing the job that I do, very specifically in my little box inside of maybe, thousands of other boxes of this organization. I want to know what it means to me. And you can't answer it right then. To your point, Courtney, you can't answer it right then. So you've got to get a little bit of thick skin, because it's the first thing you're going to start hearing chatter about. Yep. It's the thing they want to know most right away. And unfortunately, it's a thing that you can't answer until later. It's like the last thing you can answer, but the first thing they want to know.
Yep. Okay. Hey, that's all for this episode of our Shotcast. We always have much more to say. If you want more, drop us a line at Slingshot25. Until next time.